understanding. Okay? What can this entail? Why are words so critical? Well, example is Ron Paul. Okay? Now, I use Ron Paul constantly as an instructional process because you now have experienced in a micro form what men and women in the Patriot movement for years have faced, experienced, and beat their head against the wall about for years. Does Ron Paul exist? Yes. Yeah. Right? If you were look at the controlled media, does Ron Paul exist? See, everybody's laughing. But what you just saw is a classic example of George Orwell's 1984. A classic example of media manipulation. A perfect example of where you can be right there with a breathing, living human being, and it's as if he does not exist. Now that's on a fairly personable level, people. That's a very personal level, because at least they let him live. I mean, we haven't heard a rifle shot yet, and he hasn't dropped dead. Okay? But let's take that to the nth degree. In communist Russia, this Soviet socialist Russia, let's use the proper term, Soviet socialist Russia, if the state decided they didn't want you to be a human being, they had what they called internal exile. How many people know what internal exile means? A few people. What did that mean? It means, oh, I'm going to have fun here. It means that their national ID card ceased to exist. It means that the entity, by the way, this is the mark card 1 and 2. Okay, some of you have seen this before. Ceased to exist in the public files as an active card. Well, what did this mean? It meant that you no longer got food. See, people are going, boy, you know, in America, they're going to pass the ID card and they're going to pull police. This has all been done before. If we want to experience it, the controlled media is not going to tell you about it, because if they did do movies about Soviet socialist Russia, which existed for 70 plus years in its public form, then you'd already be hanging politicians from the street poles, okay? Because you would understand where we are now going. See, in Russia, you had a national ID card with 7 numbers on it. And on these 7 numbers, if an agent of the KGB, the KGB as you know it later, or the interior police of the KGB, you know, like Heartland/Homeland Security? Oh, did I say that? I'm sorry. Anyway, if they came up and said, I want to see your papers, you would hand over your card, and these numbers had to be memorized. Justification for holding you was nothing more than not knowing any one number on that ID card. Justification for indefinite detention was to not know just one foolish little dot or dash or number on this card. Now, you just saw what they did to a person in a public office. Understand that every American, every entity, any person can be put in that same place on a mass production level. Why? Because it already has happened. We don't have to guess. This is not a, gee, Mark, do you think maybe they did that? Now I'll give you a little background. I worked as a 94B intelligence analyst and as a 96C counterintelligence coordinator. I also worked as a security manager. I'm qualified in all of these areas. And I was school trained at USAGS, United States Army Intelligence Center and Schools. USAGS is where everybody, if you're an intel analyst, is trained. You may work for the other agencies, but you go through USAGS if you're going to qualify for the MOS, Military Occupational Skill. Now, I was blessed with being in the right place at the right time, and in different situations. I had no interest in going in the Army or the military. I got kind of enticed in that, like so many people do when they're younger, because it was exciting. There were things to do. And it was the end of the Vietnam War. I came in right at the end of Vietnam. Originally, I was going to aerospace. I had scholarships from NASA, the Department of Defense / the Navy, and I had special grants that were, they weren't fancy. It was just for the efforts that I made going through school to get to where I wanted to be. Okay? Now, got into USAGS, and one of the things is that contrary to what you see with Hollywood, you get to meet a lot of people, and it's a college-type environment. It's not like this regimented little, you're military, but you have a different situation here. They wanted free thinkers at the time. So you actually got a chance to discuss, talk about things, work with people, experience things otherwise you wouldn't. Well, one of the things we worked with were interrogators. Also, we worked with a lot of defectors. And because of that, we got a lot of first-hand knowledge about the real mechanizations of the interior police of the KGB. The interior police of the KGB is the epitome of what Homeland/Heartland security will be. Make no mistake about it. Both the numbers, the force strength, the nature of the mechanism, where it is, and how it's even being used on you right now, is not kind of, sort of. It is an exact reproduction of the NSKVDs / the NSKGBs / the KGBs, now the FSKs, interior police of the Soviet system. Now, internal exile. Real quick, going back to that, what would that mean? Well, once you have a socialist state, people, everything is doled out to you. And we always joked about, well, did you stand in line for toilet paper? Yeah, I did, because if not, you wouldn't be letting me stand next to me right now. Okay? Toothbrushes, toothpaste, bread, meat, if there was any. Think about this. Store shelves empty? Well, kind of, because here's the problem. It's not that they didn't produce the food. The question is, where did the food go? Because every day, wheat was produced in Russia. I mean, as long as they could and the snow wasn't flying. Beef was produced in Russia every day. Pork was produced in Russia. But it didn't go to the Russians. So where did it go? It was marketed in commerce to pay for a massive corporate national debt. It was sold to other people, not given to the people who produced it. Now, what does this mean for the regular guy in the street? Well, if he's lucky, he can actually afford, or he gets in line at the right time and he gets what he wants. But imagine this, that's for the person who has the national ID card. But what if you don't have the national ID card? How do you eat? You don't get in line for toilet paper because you don't get it. Without the national ID card, you're nothing. Ergo the term internal exile. Alexander Solzhenitsyn's The Gulag Archipelago and the book The First Circle by the same author try to express to you in thousands of words what the Soviet system was all about, what a true heartless police state is all about. Now, some of you are going to say this, it'll give them knowledge and everything that they need. They'll know everything about you. Yes, they'll know everything about you that's put into the system. But the most common mistake made is to think that in the system it will be accurate. The nature of a police state is that it not be accurate.
Разницами, товарищ, поезжается! Ноем! Geheimstaatspolizei! Schutz